Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Where we are right now is we have a lease document proposed by the YMCA that, in talking to our attorney, he told me that the Y board demanded that we have this on our agenda for today's meeting. He also told me it's a work in progress. There are lots of errors in it. It was not given to the CMPA staff member until, I believe, the 6th of March, upon which he identified several issues, including paragraph 46, I believe. Well, that was identified in a different document. But this lease document that we have in front of us, it provides that for about $1.96 per square foot per year, which is the 63,000 square feet of land we're going to possibly lease to the Y, for the purpose of providing at least a 40,000 square foot building and a minimum expenditure of $10 million. And that's about all we have. We got no backup other than the lease. We've had to piece it together. The appraisal I had to ask for to get a copy of. And I can understand why they didn't put it in there, because it doesn't paint the best picture of that usage for that particular piece of property. Now, the argument has been made that we would provide incentives for private businesses. So this is, if we had a private business going there, we'd give them incentives, and so we wouldn't get all the tax revenue that we're going to lose by having the Y there. And the fact is that when you give tax incentives, you have things in return that you're expecting. Typically, it's jobs, some type of economic impact that entity would make. In this case, we don't have anything. We have a tax-exempt organization that doesn't pay property tax, doesn't pay sales tax, and in talking with the city attorney, doesn't pay tax on building materials. So we're going to be giving up a substantial amount of revenue by going with this particular project down there. We know but if you look at the 990 for this organization, you know that a majority of their funding comes from dues. A much smaller portion comes from donations. I'm concerned about the ability of the organization to raise the money to pay the lease fee and continue to do the good work they do in the community. But it really isn't, at this point, about the legitimacy of the Y. The YMCA has been doing great work in our community for years. Decades. I'm a member of the Y, and I support a new location for the Y. This particular parcel is not where it needs to be. And I don't even know really what we're being asked to do, but thankfully we do have a motion on the floor to approve a flawed lease. As I mentioned earlier, the omnibus amendment specifies that the CMPA shall act as our agents. I don't know what you think that means, but I think it means it goes to them first. When I talked to our city attorney, he told me that they had no interest in this, working with this lease, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I've talked to several CMPA members, and it came before their audit committee. I think Mr. Gunther is here. He wasn't supposed to be here, but thankfully is here to talk about that. But it has gone before a subcommittee of the Community Maritime Park Associates, and I would think they came, their chairman over here came to the meeting and said that they would have a presentation to give them at some point, which has not happened. So I think the whole process has just been kind of thrown out the window, and we've been set up here on the city council to either be the good guys or the villains, or half good guys, half villains, or a majority of that. But if you look at the sublease, the lease, I don't even know if it should be a sublease or a lease. How can the CMPA be the leaseholder and this be a sublease when they don't even get to weigh in on it? I don't understand that, and I don't think that Collier Merrill can sign it if it's not a lease through the CMPA. The errors in this lease have been well documented in emails. I got an email that had several people's name on it, including Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Messer, Mandy Bills, Clark Merritt, Ed Spears, and Stephanie Tillery, saying that Mr. Spears' comments are correct. There are other such mistakes identified by Mandy and John Daniel in the sublease to be corrected also. However, until the committee of the whole, we are keeping one draft, the one on the agenda. So we're being presented with a flawed lease and asked to approve it, and I just don't see how we can do that. I don't even know why this is on our agenda, frankly. To have the attorney be able to add items to our agenda, I thought this legislative branch had some control over its own agenda. This is not in the proper format for us to consider. We don't negotiate leases as a rule, and so it shouldn't even be there. As far as the appraisal goes, there's some really good information in the appraisal. I encourage everyone to have a look at it, but the most interesting things to me and some of you probably don't know this because you probably haven't read it or read and what the environmental steps have been done on this property, but there's a 2-foot clean cap that cannot be disturbed on this property. So it makes me kind of wonder what possible uses, if you have to do anything where you have to dig into that, you're not going to be able to dig into that cap. Excuse me. And there's also a possibility, given identified in this appraisal, that they may have to go down up to 82 feet to connect to the hard surface that's under that property to be able to stabilize a building that's built there. The stadium's a little bit different. You know, you got a big grassy field. But so there are some serious environmental concerns, and you know, I can't get past the fact that this appraiser, somebody paid this appraiser. I think the mayor probably authorized it. That's what I was told from Mr. Spears. But when you look at another issue we've talked about is the location of the Y in a flood zone. You know, one of the comments that was made to me when I met with the Y CEO was, you know, after Ivan, it was used as a place where lots of people came and took showers after they worked downtown. Well, you're not going to be able to do that if it's down there because it's going to be gone or it's going to be underwater. So I think that's great. I'm glad that they provided that service, but it's not going to be something to be able to use after a hurricane in the future. Now, one issue that came up I've gotten lots of feedback on this, and those of you in the room that are for the YMCA will be shocked to hear there's a lot of people that are against this. I told my wife I feel like the opposing counsel on this, and I'm representing quite a few people that have concerns about this. They want the highest and best use. And when I looked in the appraisal and saw what the highest and best use needs to be, you've got legally permissible. Well, yes, I think it's legally permissible. I don't have a problem with that. Physically possible. Given the environmental issues on that property, I don't know exactly what is physically possible. A 2-foot cap does not seem like very much. I heard that when the property was undeveloped, if you dug down far enough and dropped a match in, it would blow up. So, you know, I'm kind of concerned about what's down there myself. Financial feasibility, it talks about in this appraisal, residential rental properties currently in strong demand, downtown commercial properties, strong demand. It doesn't mention nonprofits in there. We're talking about things that generate tax revenue. Maximally productive, financially feasible use, which results in the greatest return to the land, is the one which is considered to be the highest and best use of that land. I don't see this as being the highest and best use. And I think the appraiser didn't look at what impact a Y would have, but I think we have to do that. I think the mayor has given us a great opportunity, and, you know, we did meet, and he referred to the Maritime Park as a bag of tricks. So, you know, and there are a lot of, there's a lot of tricks and not many treats over there. We have a huge debt. Right now it's $2.6 million that we're going to pay this year. You add that to the $1.3 million we're paying for the sewage treatment plant property, and we have a huge debt to deal with. Obviously, even $100,000 tax revenue, if we got a tax-paying entity in there in a $10 million building, it's about $97,000 based on the TIF, the tax increment financing unit. That's not going to cover that shortfall that we have. But we have to find something that's going to generate the kind of excitement. And personally, you know, the Y is already downtown. It's got a strong membership base. It's been growing. Do I think it needs a new facility? Yes. But this group, this CBRE group, you know, their company is the highest ranked commercial real estate services investment company among Fortune's most admired companies for the 3rd straight year. I want to give them a shot at marketing these properties. And so, obviously, I'm not going to support this lease at this time. I think we need to do more study on this. Now, we'll mention one more thing since we're talking about it. Mr. Oliver's report, he mentions that parcel could be used for parking. We have a serious issue with parking and could generate about $60,000 a year until we get a property in there that's going to generate the type of tax revenue that we need. The parking issue, if you look at the lease and the comments that Mr. Spears had, could be crippling to the CMPA if it stands as written, because it gives the sublessee or the Y the exclusive right to figure out how much parking they need. Well, that parking lot is temporary parking. 1 in 5 of the members of the Y are senior citizens also, and I see them at the Y. I don't know where they're going to park and how, if there's an event going on at the Maritime Park, they're going to get to the facility. You'll get your chance to talk. I can hear you over there, snickering and muttering.
Point of order.
But
let us be professional here.
Yeah. But I just would encourage my fellow council members to consider this and consider what the highest and best use is, and vote no on this proposal.